asked you when we met how you started cooking.
How I started cooking. Actually, I didn't cook much and I wasn't very passionate about cooking before I went vegan. So at one point I decided to go vegan for ethical reasons, but then it was like, okay, I'm going to be vegan now. And I was like, what the hell am I going to eat?
Yeah.
So I had to come up with things to cook. There was not so much available, like ready-made food. And anyway, I wanted to eat healthy vegan food.
Mm-hmm.
So I just started veganizing the recipes that I knew that I liked that were not vegan. And that's how it all started. I had a friend come over and he would just chat while I would be cooking, and I'd do like 4 different recipes at the same time. Yeah, it was the best time.
So how old were you when you switched to veganism?
I'm 30 now, and it's been, I think, 8 years. I was 22,
Okay.
more or less. Yeah.
And what kind of dishes? Because you said that you took some of the things you already knew how to cook. So what were those
Yeah.
dishes?
Um, like in Switzerland, we call it Weihe. So it's something like a quiche, and you can make it sweet or savory. And you can just like put different fruits or vegetables on a dough, it's the base. And then what you pour over it is basically cream, eggs, milk. And I think that's one of the first recipes that I started veganizing. Yeah, I really love it. The sweet and the savory version.
Sounds good. And so how did you get into retreats, cooking for retreats after you started cooking for yourself?
Yeah, so I did a yoga teacher training, and then there I met my partner at the time. Actually, we didn't partner up during the training, but some months later we met up and became a couple. So he was also a yoga teacher. He was already um, planning a retreat, and so he asked me if I would cook on the retreat, if I would go there with him, help him with the cooking, assist. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. I like cooking. I like to be on a retreat. I like the yoga and to be part of that group dynamic. So I went along. It was so much fun. Had a really amazing time. And yeah, long story short, I realized this is what I want to do, and I want to travel cooking for retreats. And then that's also where the relationship ended, because he didn't want to come with me traveling and having that adventurous lifestyle. He wanted to stay where he was. But yeah, it was amazing. It was the first retreat I cooked for.
And it was in Switzerland?
It was in Germany, in the Black Forest, the south
The Black
of Germany.
Forest.
Yeah. Have you heard of it?
I've only heard of the Black Forest dessert.
Yeah. There's like a cake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. It's my favorite. It's my favorite. But it's with a lot of cream, but it's totally possible to veganize it as well. I just made one a month ago or so for someone's birthday.
Mm. So is the Black Forest in Germany, is it black? It's dark in
It's
there?
I think it's called the Black Forest because there's a certain type of let's see, not a pine tree, but like the evergreen trees. I don't know the
Mm-hmm.
English word right now. And it has a very dark stem. It's called the Black Schwarztanne, I think. And there's a lot of those trees in that forest. I think that's why it's called that way. Not
Mm.
not 100% sure. Yeah.
Did you ever see that series? Hang on a second. Excuse me, vocal difficulties. Did you ever see that series? It's a German series. It's called Dark.
No,
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know it.
It's really cool because it's in a forest and there's this
Okay.
cave and it has like those dark bark that you're
Yeah.
talking about. The trees
Yeah.
have that really dark bark. And anyway, they go and they time travel, but
Okay,
that's a whole
cool.
nother
Maybe
thing.
it was shot in that forest. Who knows?
Maybe,
Maybe.
maybe. So I mean, all right, you started doing retreats with your former partner and then you start traveling. So what are some of the places that you've traveled to?
Yeah, so the first place I went to was Tenerife. So it's one of the Canarian islands. It's politically it's Spain, but geographically it's actually more Africa. It's right next to Morocco. So the climate there is amazing. So that's my favorite place. Actually, it became like a second home to me. So I stayed for a full season, like winter season. And then I moved on. And in spring, I went to Ibiza. So the Ibiza spring is like the summer in mid-Europe, where I'm from. So I just basically moved from the warm place to a warm place, but not too hot. And then in summer, I went to, so I did two retreats in Ibiza. Some of them I was just teaching as a yoga teacher. And sometimes I was chefing. Most of the time I was working as a chef. And then in the summer, I went to Switzerland. Once I cooked for a festival of like 120 people in the Czech Republic.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I had some helpers for that one, but yeah, and then I cooked in Switzerland, where I'm from. And I did a fall season in Portugal, which is also amazing because the fall in Portugal is like the summer
You just
in
follow the
Switzerland.
summer.
Yeah, I just followed the sun, the good vibes.
Nice.
Yeah, so I went to Portugal. I did another season in Tenerife. That was amazing. And while I was in Tenerife that winter, I did some trips to see the other islands, see some of the other islands. I went over to Morocco because it's really close and accessible. Just used basically where I was working as a retreat chef as a point where I could also travel from.
Yeah. And then when did you meet Nikita?
I met Nikita online after I posted a job opening for freelancing. I think I called it community manager because I had this idea to build a community, an online community for retreat chefs. At the time, the idea was just to have a platform for chefs because I started getting all these questions from people like, how did you get into retreat chefing? How did you manifest this amazing life where you can just follow the sun, live your dream? How did you get the contacts? How did you get the jobs? How do you budget? All of these questions. And so I realized actually there's a lot of probably more people interested in how I created this lifestyle for myself than there are at the moment. So I was like, okay, I have this vision. I have this vision now. And I want to move forward with it, but I can't do it alone. So I'm going to search for somebody who can assist me with that, who can help me with that. So I wrote this job post on, I think it was veganjobs.com, because I'm a very passionate vegan and I wanted to have somebody who's like also passionate about encouraging vegan chefs to go into retreats. And then Nikita wrote to me and we had a call and I was like, yeah, she's so passionate about the same topic that I'm so passionate about. She's experienced as a retreat chef. Yeah. So that's how I found her, and beautiful friendship started there.
Yeah. She's lovely. I love Nikita. She has a great, open, friendly energy. So I can see how you guys would hit it off right away. She's easy to love.
Yeah.
And so tell me more about this community of chefs that you were building and like why you felt it was necessary.
Yeah. So like I said, I got all these questions. So that was basically making me curious, like, okay, well, how can I help these people? And I don't want to like every time send this, write a very individual message. It would be amazing if I would just have like a library with all the answers. So yeah, I think at the bottom line is I just want to help encourage other chefs, especially vegan chefs or people who want to work as vegan chefs or learn more about vegan cooking, help them find a way into the industry, into the business, encourage them to start their own business maybe. And also another aspect that was actually quite important for my decisions was that I started getting requests to cook on retreats, but then my schedule was already full, or I couldn't go to this specific location because it was like geographically like not possible for me. And so I realized actually it's a pity that I have to turn down these job offers if there's so many people who would love to do this job. So I started with the WhatsApp group. Very simple. I was like, okay, what can I do that's free, that's easy, that I can do right away? So I started creating a WhatsApp group and putting all the chefs that I knew in there and having the chefs add other chefs. And that's how, actually, amazingly, now Nikita is in Tenerife working the job that I did, the 2 seasons that I did 2 seasons before that. I had another chef friend. She used to work on boats, catering on boats. I think she was mostly in the Mediterranean Sea, and she got the Ibiza job that I had the year before the retreat. The same retreat facilitators, and yes, it was just so amazing to see how other chefs get to go on these adventures and have a good time and explore these beautiful places. And yeah, that's what kept me going.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you can share and that there's still so much, and seeing other people have these opportunities and making dreams come true. That's got to be fulfilling, not just for them, but for you, because you are providing the platform for them to do that.
Yeah.
So tell me
and
about.
I trust a lot. Maybe I can add this. I trust a lot in like this. We're all connected, right? So if I offer something and I don't keep it for myself and think like, oh, I don't want to give this job away because I might get it next year or whatever. If I just give, then things are gonna come back and we can all just move forward together.
And those same chefs, I'm sure it becomes like an ecosystem, because once they get busy, they may come across a time when they can't do it, and they'll give it back to you because they're so grateful.
Exactly.
And it just creates this beautiful harmony of, it's an ecosystem instead of a ego system.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a shift in the mind, no, from there's not enough to there's this life is abundant. This industry is abundant. We have so much to share. So let's not like the mentality. I don't know. I'm here in Germany, living in Germany at the moment. The mentality of the people is very much like, I have to keep everything to myself. But that's not where I want to go. Like that's not where I want to see our world, this planet, us as a human race. I want to see that we're sharing, we're collaborating, and so I try to create the future that I want.
You made me think of like this visual, because I'm a pretty visual person, and I like using the body as an example. So when you said the fist, it's like you can't hold anything like this but yourself. But if you do this, then you open yourself up to hold someone else's hand and make a chain, and that can extend like infinitely as far as you want it to, depending on how many hands are open down the line. That's really beautiful. So I want to ask you about vegan cooking, because I know there's a lot of, like people have their perceptions of vegan cooking, sometimes that it's like super processed, or maybe it doesn't taste good. What are some of the challenges that you've come across people when you say that you're a vegan chef and maybe they're not vegan?
Yeah, there's always people that are scared of trying something new, something that just not familiar. That what I can say is that when I'm on retreat, I'm cooking on retreats, there's always people that are not vegan, that are not familiar with vegan cooking, with vegan food. They don't pay attention to the fact if they're eating plants or if they're eating animal products. So I always try to create the textures, the flavors that also these people will like, most likely. So I try to, bring a bit of a cheesy taste into the meals, some of the meals, a bit of like a meaty texture.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, maybe we can go deeper and just like, how are all the ingredients you use plant-based?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, yeah. I like to work a lot with mushrooms, and mushrooms are not like necessarily plants. They're a different species, but yeah.
I love mushrooms. Mushrooms. I
Yeah,
took a course on
mushrooms are
mushrooms from
amazing.
actually no, I think he's from, gosh, I don't remember where he's from now. It's got to be Sweden, or maybe it's Finland. Maybe it's Finland. Anyway, the guy from Four Sigmatic. Have you heard of Four Sigmatic?
No.
It's a mushroom company. And so they uh have a course. I don't know if they still do, but they used to have a course that you could take to learn all about mushrooms. And apparently what I learned, and this is really cool, like you said, they're not a part of the plant kingdom. They're their own species. And they share 88% DNA with humans, which is why they're so
Yeah.
beneficial to helping us
Yeah.
regenerate and
Yeah,
just for
yeah,
our
yeah.
health in
I've
general.
heard that. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. I think mushrooms are like they're very trending at the moment. Like not just like the magic mushrooms and the magic magic mushroom ceremonies, but like also in the culinary and the supplements with mushrooms, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much still to discover about mushrooms. Yeah. But for cooking, I love the texture. Like you can do so much with mushrooms because they also have a lot of the umami taste, which is like what meat eaters
Yeah.
crave. If you would go like plant-based from one day to the other, just leave away, all of the animal products, and you don't like take care of the umami flavors. You just eat like broccoli and leek and potatoes. In the beginning, you're gonna miss those flavors, and the way to implement, like, to get those flavors in a plant-based vegan cooking is by using plants that contain a lot of umami. So that's especially mushrooms, tomatoes. You can use nutritional yeast, and other ingredients, fermented foods.
What is nutritional yeast?
Well, it's something that I use a lot to create a cheesy flavor. For example, I mix it into like cashew dips and I make like cashew cream cheese out of it. Um, yeah,
And it's
it's
nutritional. I'm assuming
it's
because
nutrition.
it's called.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's like a powder. It's like flakes. I think sometimes I think my English skills are not good enough to explain the process of how it's made. I just have to look it up or
Yeah,
ask
do your
ChatGPT
best.
to explain. But
Okay.
yeah, it's like a byproduct that bacteria creates in the I think it's a sort of fermentation, and it contains a lot of the vitamins, B vitamins. Yeah. And a lot of other like the micronutrients that are actually quite important, especially if you have a vegan diet. You want to take care of specific micronutrients. You want to make sure you have them in your nutrition or that you're supplementing them. And if you eat or nutritional yeast, as it's called, regularly, you can actually take a lot of those micronutrients in. And it's super tasty. I love to put it on almost everything. And
Like,
I also
does
love
it?
to make like parmesan with it, so
Mm.
a type of parmesan with nuts, different nuts, and then nutritional yeast salt, and I can just sprinkle that on, different food.
Sounds delicious. So
Mhm.
when you hear yeast, usually you think of gluten. Does nutritional yeast have
Yeah.
gluten?
There is some nutritional yeast that is it's like a product of the fermentation of wheat. It comes like from wheat, but you can also make nutritional yeast from molasses, which
Oh.
then does not contain gluten. And that's the one I always use because it also tastes better, at least from my experience. It always depends on the brand, to be honest. Like there's huge differences, but the ones that made from molasses is the one I prefer because I always go when I cook on retreats, there's always one or two or three people that don't eat gluten or they prefer not to or they're celiac. So from the beginning. I just make sure that everything's gluten-free and that there's just extra bread on the side, and I have a gluten-free bread for the brunches. But all the other meals, I make them gluten-free. Also, I use a lot of tamari or tamari. Maybe you recognize
I don't know,
that.
what is
It's
that?
a soy sauce. It's a soy sauce, but it's a gluten-free soy sauce because
Okay.
the soy sauce does the yeah the soy sauce that you might know, it usually contains wheat and it's more watery and it's not so intense in the taste. And tamari has a really intense, has a more intense taste. It's always gluten free, and that's those are my
This is
two
really
favorite
cool.
ingredients that I take everywhere I go. Yeah.
And are these some of the things that you can learn? Because you and Nikita have a vegan chef training to,
Yeah.
which I think is really good, not just for people who wanna get into cooking at retreats, but maybe people who are already cooking at retreats and they
Yeah.
just want to
Mm-hmm.
add vegan dishes to their repertoire.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, Nikita and me, we planned a series of chef retreats. We already had one in October 2024, and we have one coming up in June. And definitely, you're gonna, like, whoever comes to the retreat, you're gonna learn from both of us, from Nikita and me. We're both experienced retreat chefs, but also, for example, I have the background of food blogging. So we haven't talked about this much, but I also do like recipe development and food photography for clients, but also for my own website. And on retreats that we do, we teach the basics of vegan cooking. I specialize more on like veganizing dishes, like catering to people that are meat eaters and that you really want those flavors, those umami flavors. And Nikita specializes more in Ayurvedic cooking. So that's what people learn on our trainings, on our retreats. But then they also learn about other topics like how to take a nice photo of your food. If you want to use food photography as a way of marketing your offerings, and also like how to scale recipes. If you have 10 people, how to scale it for 10 people. If you're cooking for a wedding, Nikita's amazing at that because she's catered quite a few weddings and she has a few coming up this summer, scaling a recipe to 120 people, for example.
That's
And these
insane.
are that's the type of things we teach on the retreat. Actually, I'm really excited because I'm going to go to England where Nikita lives and help her on one of the weddings that she's doing this June. This is super exciting because I've never catered for a wedding, except for like maybe some desserts or something, but not like a full catering. So super excited to learn more about that.
Yeah, I saw one of her reels. I think it was like a month or a few weeks ago where she was like standing on a stool over this humongous pot. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, wow, that looks intense.
Yeah, that's in Tenerife. That's the kitchen I used to cook in, and it's amazing that she got that job. Yeah, it looked like she's a witch, you know, and she has her potion, and it's like cooking.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I love that. I mean, for your retreats, it sounds like it's very holistic as far as it's not just teaching you how to cook, but teaching you how to, I mean, a little bit of the business and marketing aspect of being a retreat chef.
Definitely. So important to if you want to make this if you want to work as a retreat chef, it's better to not make the mistakes that Nikita and me made. That's why we're teaching the people the things that we've learned after making certain mistakes. Yeah, like also how to negotiate with people who offer you a retreat job. What kind of things you have to think about, like your own accommodation, the transport there, who's going to pay for the ingredients, all of that. Yeah, and also on these trainings that we do, we want to have a retreat vibe so that the people get a retreat experience while they're learning. Yeah, so in the mornings we have yoga sessions in the evenings, we'll have more calm, like yin yoga or the singing mantras, cacao ceremony. I did a cacao ceremony on the last retreat. We sang together. So yeah, we kind of bedded all, the teachings for the chefs. We bedded into this retreat container, and yeah, we want to have a good time while we're learning together.
I love that. And so the next one is in June, and how can you learn more about it?
So you can send me a direct message on Instagram or on my website. There's a blog post on the front page. It's called Holistic Chef Training or Retreat Holistic Chef Training. And there's a contact form there. You can send me an email via that. You can contact Nikita, learn more about the retreat. Is going to be in Devon, England, which is a beautiful place that I got to visit last year. Right at the sea. So the location is not next to the sea, but it's really easy to go there. Beautiful sand dunes, and the nature there is just so lush and abundant. Beautiful.
Sounds really nice. So let me ask you about some, I guess, what pain points do you see most often in the chef community? I know you talked a little bit about building this community because people were reaching out to you, trying to understand, like, how do you get this job? How do you become a retreat chef? And just sharing different opportunities. But once you are a retreat chef, what are some of the common pain points or challenges that you've experienced?
I think while you're on a retreat, it can be a lot of work, it can be really intense, many hours, and that it's very important to take care of yourself, to not forget that you also need to retreat, between cooking the meals. Take time for yourself, relax, do some yoga, have a nap. Another thing, the negotiation, like negotiating with the facilitators or the venues. It's, for me, it's again and again, like learning new things about how to negotiate and how to make sure that I get paid well. Yeah, so that at the end of the day, I'm not working below a minimal wage. Yeah, if I count all the hours, I can earn quite a lot of money in 3 days. But if I work from early morning to late at night, if I break it down to the hourly salaries, maybe not that much. So I think it's important for retreat chefs to know their value. And yeah, find fair deals. And I think, of course, in the beginning, some retreat chefs will work in exchange to participate in the retreat. But what I found, I did that once, and I found out immediately that it's not worth it. Because yes, you get to go to all the sessions, you get to be part of that, but then you have to go straight back into the kitchen. So you have zero time to integrate the experience, actually. So maybe what you would earn cooking on a retreat is the same as what the retreat cost is, what they charge for the retreat. But because you're trying to do it in the same time, you don't get the value of the retreat, while the facilitator gets the value of your food, obviously, if you deliver. So I think it's really important to be clear there on that. Like, what are you exchanging? Like, how much money are you charging? What's included? What's not? So even if you already worked on some retreats, it's still something that I'm still optimizing. So I'm still getting better at that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because there are a lot of, people. I mean, I was talking to someone else who's in the tech industry, startup world, and we were talking about how retreats, in a lot of ways, it's a startup. It's a startup because it's not like you have a lot of capital, at least when you're starting out, and you're doing a lot of like training, negotiating, trying to figure out how to work with people to create the experience that you want. And a lot of people, I think out of goodwill will say, yeah, why don't you, I'll let you come on the retreat for free. You get everything for free. But like you said, after the experience, you look back and you're like, okay, that was great, but also I didn't really get what I needed from it for all the
Yeah,
reasons. And when you
exactly.
mention, that you need to take a break, you need to take care of yourself because you're standing on your feet for so many hours. And I imagine that those breaks, sometimes you want to take them alone, like you don't want to be in the
Yeah,
group.
yeah, 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 definitely. I think it depends on your personality also. Like I'm a very social person, so actually I get energy out of being in groups and like just, being part of the vibe somehow. So it gives me a lot, but over time I've learned that I it I need time alone. Time with the group is amazing because it's also a great place to network, to be honest, like to get new jobs because participants of retreats are often there's often someone in the group who also is gonna facilitate a retreat sometime in the future or has some other sort of, connection point that's gonna be, beneficial to you and your path as well.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So that's great to be part of the group for part of the time, be alone and do your work. So I've also gotten better at balancing all of this. But I know, for example, for Nikita, she's better just on her own, like taking her time for herself and not chit-chatting with the participants necessarily. Of course, there's always a bit of exchange and the participants are often very curious also about the recipes. And of course, we as chefs, we love to share. We love to share about how we made this meal and what went into it and all of that.
So when you're negotiating, would you recommend negotiating like a time where you're like, okay, I'm not going to be available from this time to this time every day?
I do think about when I'm going to have a break away from the group, when I'm going to be out of the kitchen and not in a session or anything like that. So I don't necessarily have to negotiate that from the beginning. It's just something I mention.
Okay.
I don't have to ask for permission to have a break. So I just say, okay, and this is the time we're going to serve brunch. This is the time I'm going to serve dinner. I have 3 hours before dinner, 3 hours before brunch, or 2.5, depending on the group size. And in between, there's maybe 1 hour of washing dishes or something like that. And then I have 3 hours of break, something like that. And then in those
Okay.
3 hours, I make sure to have some time alone, have a rest, like lie down. And then if I have the energy and I want to participate and there's something going on in the retreat, then I'm invited. It's not always the case that the chef is invited to the activities, actually. So I also like if it's a retreat, and actually nowadays I only cook for retreats where I'm actually like interested in the content of the retreat, where I'm like, wow, that's a great idea. I love this idea. I want to support that. So those are the retreats I go on, and then I can participate in my break if I'm invited.
What are some of the retreats that you've been on that you really like?
Yeah. I love the djembe retreat. I went on a drumming retreat as a participant, actually, because I always thought I don't I'm not good with rhythms, right? I love singing, I love playing. I play a bit of guitar, harmonium, but I always had the idea that like I'm terrible at drumming. So I wanted to change that. So I went on a drumming retreat. So it was 3 days of playing the djembe. And then that was in summer. And then the winter after, the same facilitator asked me if I want to cook on his retreat because the chef that he had at the retreat before, he went traveling. And so I was like, yeah, amazing. I loved your retreat. So I'm definitely going to come cook for your retreat and play some djembe in between cooking. So That's one of the retreats I really loved. And then I have another friend who does women's retreats, and I really love her, her approach, how she works. Yeah, I
That's
love
cool.
also the retreats that are only women. I love that. And another friend who does retreats where there's like different workshops, and then like at the end of the retreat, there's a photo shooting because she's a photographer. So the aim of the retreat is basically to bring the women into their full potential, their full power. And then at the end of the retreat, they get, she does nude photos in the forest. So that was amazing. All the women, all the witches in the forest taking nude photos. Was great.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen a few people, we've talked to a few photographers here that are doing that. And
Yeah.
yeah, it sounds scary, but also something that's very exciting to experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously it was very like, the photos were very great. Gracious, is that a right word? I'm not sure, but like covering the intimate parts and like just being really like a fairy in the woods.
Yeah.
Beautiful photos of these women. And yeah, I love the idea of capturing the essence of someone's power, but also someone's tenderness in a photo. She says, like, my friend who's the photographer, she says it's like it's one of the most empowering tools. It's like, her tool that she uses to empower people. It's
What's
like
your
putting
friend's
them in a
name?
beautiful Daisha.
Okay, Daisha.
Yeah.
I
Her
haven't met her yet.
Her Instagram is Almara Vision. So yeah, and we're gonna do. She's gonna do 2 more retreats this year in 2025.
Okay.
In Germany, and I'm gonna be cooking on both of them. Yeah.
Nice. And
Looking
they're
forward
photography
to those.
retreats or they're women's retreats?
It's a women's retreat with the
Okay.
photo shooting at the end. So it's not like the main focus is photography. It's more of like an empowerment retreat for women, and then the photo shooting is like one of the empowerment tools.
Okay.
And the other retreat that she's doing is going to be a plant medicine retreat.
That sounds really cool. I want to ask you about traveling because I know one of the things you said was that you're not just a retreat chef, but you're a traveling retreat chef. So what are some of the challenges there? You could say like, let's say, what are some of the challenges and then what are some of the amazing benefits? So it's both sides.
Yeah, so I'd say at the moment I'm like I wouldn't say I'm a traveling retreat chef anymore. I had like, almost 2 years, I'd say. Almost 2 years of traveling. I think like the way I did it was really adventurous. So I left my apartment, put all my stuff, all my belongings at my parents' house in the attic, and then I bought a small van. So it was just me and my van, and I traveled around wherever I'd get a retreat job, but actually also where I felt like going. That's where I searched for retreat jobs, cooking jobs, and that's where I went. So Portugal, Tenerife, Ibiza, and so on. So I think one of the challenges can be, if you do it this way, is you don't have a base anymore. Like I didn't have a place that was like my home. It was my van. That was my home. And that can be it can be lonely at times because you're always moving. You're always meeting new people, and the connections that I made, it takes time to build a relationship, a friendship, so on. So if you're always moving, it kind of gets difficult to really have deeper connections. So the places where I stayed longer, that's where I found like real true friends that I keep in touch with, that I go to visit, and they can come to visit me, and we have calls. So I think it depends. Like you can be a slow traveling retreat chef. You can do seasons, half a year there, half a year here, and go back and forth from 2 places. Or you can be like a fast traveling retreat chef, like I was at times, like 1 week Czech Republic, 2 weeks Germany, 1 week Austria, then 2 weeks or 1 month Switzerland, and 2 months Portugal. And that was a bit, for me personally, it was fun. It was adventurous, but it was a bit bit lonely after a while. And so maybe that's one of the downside if you do it that way. And I don't know, so I didn't really think about it, but also traveling alone as a woman in a small van, sometimes I felt like unsafe, but I didn't realize until about a year later when a friend asked me, who was also living in a van at that time, asked me if I ever felt unsafe. And I was like, actually, yeah. I had moments where I was like in some, big parking lots close to the beach, but I didn't feel really safe. So maybe that can be a downside. So it's really, if you want to travel as a chef, as a retreat chef, then find the way that works for you. So I'd say, yeah, at the moment I have like an apartment, I have a base, and I am gonna have a busy summer of retreats. So I'm always gonna be like here, Switzerland, Germany, Austria, like going to retreats back and forth. But then I can always come home to my apartment. I have my bed, I have my belongings, my furniture. Yeah. Which gives me a feeling of like stability, some
Yeah.
sort of feeling of safety, all of that. And I'd say the upsides, the most amazing things. That was the other question, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is it's like the retreat industry, like the retreat bubble, I call it. It's very it can be very soft, and it can be a beautiful place to heal and to dive into connections that are authentic and nurturing. I've met some amazing people who were facilitators or participants, and in a retreat setting, it's like you can become really close really fast. And yeah, and I think I learned a lot from actually connecting to some of the facilitators, some of the participants who were really in the retreat, not just for themselves to have a retreat, but it was quite often it was like, it's about the group. It's about the feeling of we belong. It's not about me and my retreat. It's about creating a space that is nurturing, that is healing for everyone in that space. And as a chef, very often I got to be part of that. Yeah. And I received a lot of gifts in that way, a lot of love, a lot of being held while I was holding a lot of space for them, nurturing them. Yeah. Very rewarding in that way. It can be very rewarding. Yeah.
Definitely. That's beautiful. Well, it sounds like, if especially you're in Europe, so you're in a place where you can easily just drive and get to a bunch of different places, where it might be harder if you're, in a country that's bigger, more spread out, like the US, and you have to take a plane to get to most
Yeah.
places.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool. Thank you for sharing all of that. I just want to ask you one more question. What is one piece of advice that you would give your younger self starting out as a retreat chef now that you have all these years of experience? What would you tell her? The one thing that she needs to keep in mind.
Don't worry. It's going to be all right. Yeah. It's all going to, you know, if it's meant to be, it's going to find its path, and yeah, it's all going to align. And so you don't have to worry about where you're going to end up or who you're going to work with and where you're going to be. And yeah,
That's good
relax.
advice. Yes. And what about for the retreat community? Do you have any message you'd like to share?
So the retreat community, does that mean mostly the people who work on retreats, like facilitators, venues,
Yeah.
owners, or also like the participants, people who like to go on retreats? And
Also,
also, did you say an advice, right? Or
an
it's just something I
advice,
would.
a message, just something that's coming up for you that you'd like to share.
Yeah. I I'd say it's the what I said earlier, that it's not about me and my retreat, but about the ripples that I can create for the whole. So yeah, if I take care of myself and I take care of the people around me, yeah, it's going to lead to more people caring about other people, about the environment, about animals, about the planet.